Fortnite Battle Royale has come a long way. We definitely love where the game is today, but we'd be lying to ourselves if we said we don't miss the good old days of Seasons 1 and 2. There isn't a game that has changed as much as Fortnite, and you really feel it when you sit down and look back at its past seasons. But before we take a look at some of the things in Fortnite that just scream OG, subscribe to CBR and ring that bell to join our notification squad, so you never miss any of our Fortnite videos. With the Fortnitemares event finally over with, we saw two items that were supposed to stay OG forever. The Skull Trooper skin and the Reaper pickaxe get re-released. Now, the Reaper pickaxe showed up in the item shop multiple times before, so that didn't really rustle too many jimmies, but the Skull Trooper skin wasn't seen in the item shop since Halloween 2017, so a whole year passed since its first release. We don't really see the big deal about this, but players who consider themselves OG got really mad about the whole thing. All we hear lately is OG this and OG that, so you know what? It's time to take a trip down memory lane and truly look back at some things only the so-called OG Fortnite players will remember. Believe it or not, there was a Fortnite Battle Royale mode before Season 1. Players tend to believe that it started at Season 1, but it didn't. For only about a month, Epic Games just had the Battle Royale mode and that's it. You just get into matches and you play. It's as simple as that. There was no player progression, no item shop, just a shell of a Battle Royale game. Obviously though, this was all done purposefully. Epic Games wanted to make sure they create a good foundation for Fortnite. They created a map, came up with weapons, and just wanted to make sure everything ran smoothly on their Unreal Engine 4. This sounds super duper easy, but it's not at all. So much goes into making a video game, but you have to start somewhere, and as bare bones as pre-Season 1 Fortnite was, it was Epic Games' first foray into the mode after putting all of their focus into Save the World, the PvE mode of Fortnite. If you're truly an OG player who's been playing the Battle Royale mode since it launched in September 2017, then you may have gotten your hands on a weapon known as the Zapotron. There's literally no footage of this weapon on the internet, other than this clip by Ionix TV. The weapon could only be found in supply drops, not a chest, not as floor loot, but those ultra rare supply drops. It had a little charge-up time, and then you just had to shoot around the general vicinity of an enemy for it to connect and deal 150 damage. That's right, unless you had full health and more than 50 shield, this weapon could take you out in one inaccurate hit. It was removed from the game as quickly as it entered and was gone before Season 1 even began. Speaking of Season 1, when it came around in October 2017, it changed Fortnite Battle Royale forever, making it a much more interesting game than it already was. The first season introduced player progression in Fortnite, meaning you could finally level up and get rewarded for playing the game. Challenges were added in a later patch to spruce things up, and there were only 4 items available for purchase in the season shop, as it was called back then. If you remember looking through the season shop shown by the Mr. Chaptastic and not the item shop, then you, my friend, are an OG Fortnite player. You must also remember how it worked then, because it wasn't as simple as it is today. Nowadays, you just spend V-Bucks to purchase items, but it wasn't like this back then. In Season 1, not only did you have to reach a certain tier to unlock the item in the season shop, but you even had to spend some V-Bucks to buy the item. The Mako glider was given to players for free later in the season, but the rest costed real money. There wasn't nearly as much to do back then. The map in Season 1 was green as AF, but really empty looking. It was like a giant, boring plain with the small huts and little settlements here and there. Many of the locations that are popular landing spots today didn't even exist back then. There were no haunted hills, paradise palms, or even tilted towers for that matter. Yeah, that's right. The famous tilted towers didn't even exist in Season 1. The Season 1 locations included Flush Factory, Moisty Mire, Fatal Fields, Greasy Grove, Retail Row, Anarchy Acres, Pleasant Park, Loot Lake, Lonely Lodge, Wailing Woods, Salty Springs, Tomato Town, and Dusty Depot. For whatever reason, Salty Springs, Tomato Town, and Dusty Depot weren't named at the beginning of the season, but got named halfway through. Why they weren't named initially, we'll never know, but that's all in the past. And they're named now, so who really cares? There were also different traps available in Season 1 too, like the ceiling trap, the wall dynamo, and the jump pad that's much different than the launch pad because it doesn't throw you high enough to use a glider. It was more like those bouncy pads we used to have that sent you flying and removed fall damage until you landed. They'd sometimes glitch out and send you to your death anyway, but it didn't happen often. The ceiling trap that K-Town 70 uses was like an electric zapper that was easy to hear. It was quick to hit enemies and knock them down, but so damn loud. The wall dynamo was pretty much the exact same thing as the ceiling trap, but you guessed it, you could place it on walls. Lurk Kingle found a way to get multiple kills using the loud trap, and we honestly can't believe how bad his opponents are. Epic Games ended up removing these traps later for the damage trap we still have today that can be placed on both ceilings and walls. It's the best of both worlds! And who can forget the bush? The ability to turn into a walking bush like scissors was one of the most hilarious things you could do in Fortnite, but no one really does it today, unless they're just trolling or stupid. We're not done yet either, as Season 1 was also when rocket riding became a thing. It's not a strategy we're skilled enough to do. We're more of the sit around and wait type, like a lot of players were in the early seasons, but some players like Dakota's can definitely rocket ride to the skies above or get a kill on it to earn a victory royale. Sadly, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows in Season 1. The worst thing about the season was that friendly fire was always on, which wasn't the greatest idea and one of the rare shortcomings of the early game. Players would accidentally kill their teammates because they got in the way of their shots, and it wasn't a good time for anyone. There were also much fewer weapons back then, but at least the awesome color-coded loot system was there since day one. It's one of the things that set it apart from PUBG. Of course, you had your burst and full auto assault rifles to go along with the SCAR, but we didn't have nearly as many suppressed weapons or the best weapon of them all, the minigun. Seriously though, in Season 1, your chances of getting a good gun were much higher than they are today with all the weapons we now have. We're looking at you, Grey Pistol. Fortnite back in Season 1 looks primitive and absolutely nothing like the Fortnite we have now in Season 6, but it was still very enjoyable. You know, besides all the campers and the fact that it was only 30 FPS on consoles until Season 3, believe it or not. Console performance aside, Season 1 was all the way back when players were learning the ins and outs of Fortnite, so there was nothing wrong with camping until Final 2 and only winning because your opponent took fall damage. It was much easier to earn a victory royale back then, but it was made even easier by all the noobs who were still learning how to build. Building one-by-one towers quickly became the best endgame strategy and still is today. You might never be as quick to build them as Myth, but you'll get there eventually. One of the strategies we hated the most was when players would carry tons of rockets and spam the rocket launcher at both close and long range, making it at the time the best weapon of the game. It was a much simpler time, where the community was a bit nicer to each other, even if it was still mostly made up of angsty tweens. Oh, Season 1. We miss you so much. Season 1 didn't really have anything to compare itself to at the time of release, other than PUBG of course, but it laid the foundation of what continues to be a gaming phenomenon to this day. The loot system, the weapons, and the map were great, but it all left players wanting more, and we certainly got it in Season 2. A less OG season than the first, but still an OG season nonetheless. Season 2 was arguably the most improved season in Fortnite history. The theme of the season was medieval, with skins focusing on Fortnites. Get it? Fortnites? Anyway, it was a pretty awesome theme that gave us the memorable Black Knight and Red Knight skins along with the famous Ride the Pony and Floss emotes. Epic Games made a big change and turned friendly fire off, meaning you could be a bit more reckless in games of duo or squad since you don't have to worry about your teammates getting in the way of your shots. Season 2 also introduced us to the Battle Pass, shown by 0x Fusions, that would allow you to earn unique skins and gear as you progress. They introduced Battle Stars, which you could earn by leveling up and completing challenges. 10 Battle Stars were needed to gain a tier, and you could unlock new gear at every tier until you reach the maximum tier level of 70. At tier 70, you'll earn the Black Knight skin to showcase that you're the best of the best. Unless you paid for it, of course. The challenges were only daily, as Fortnite had yet to introduce the weekly and tier-based challenges, but it was definitely a step in the right direction. The season shop was also replaced by the item shop, shown by the difference, which has been in place ever since. Like we mentioned earlier, you just spend V-Bucks to purchase items, and nothing is unlocked at a specific tier or anything like that. It's all available immediately, as long as you have the V-Bucks. The most amazing part about Season 2 was the map expansion. There was a huge patch that added 5 new locations to the map. It was the biggest change we've ever seen to the map at one time. Sure, the whole Worlds Collide theme of Season 5 and Kevin's journey made a lot of changes, but they weren't as quick and drastic as the change from Season 1 to Season 2 was. We were finally introduced to the infamous Tilted Towers along with shifty shafts, snobby shores, haunted hills, and Junk Junction. Epic Games realized that the western side of the map was completely empty, so they filled it up with all these new locations. Another memorable addition to Season 2 that created some new strategies was the Boogie Bomb. There was finally a counter to those campers, and nothing was more entertaining than having your opponents catch some disco fever before shotgunning them to oblivion. Players seemed to shout that everything was OP, and they had this exact reaction with the minigun. Most of us can't destroy everything in our path like Muselk and earn a victory royale using this pea-shooting bullet hose, but clearly, at least someone can. While it wasn't useful at all against enemies, it absolutely destroyed structures, so at least it had a use. And don't get us started on the impulse grenade plays some of the pros make. We accidentally launch ourselves off hills while they launch themselves toward victory royales. It's just not fair. If you consider yourself an OG player, then we here at CBR just smacked you off the head with a hammer of nostalgia. The first 2 seasons brought so much to the game we love. Season 1 set the groundwork for Fortnite, and Season 2 built on it. That whole debacle got us yearning for the good old days. And that totally isn't obvious because we just talked about the first few seasons for the past 10 minutes. Well, those are just some of the things only OG Fortnite players will remember. When did you start playing Fortnite? Do you miss any of these things? Let us know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Fortnite videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.